Hey guys, alright, so we're going to plate our three-dimensional desk, right? There it is. We did that all before. It looks just like the one in the pictures. So, the nice thing about plating a 3D object, oh, okay, that's fine, later, is that we can just use the different views to show us what we need to see. So I'm going to go into top plan view, which is Control 5. So there it is, the top view of the desk. I'm going to group it so that I can keep it all in one unit. That's Control G. And I'm just going to move it a little bit away from all of our construction stuff so that we don't get other nonsense in this plate that we're about to do. So I'll just move it kind of over here outside of the web of other stuff. Okay? So the first thing I'm going to do is plate the top view. And so I'm going to go into View, Create Viewport. As always, we're going to put it on 11 by 17 like we have been in the past, and we're going to call this Desk Top. Not Deck Top, Desk Top. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and increase the scale to 1/2 inch because I know that 1/4 inch will be really small on the drafting. Okay, so that's that. I'm hitting enter. And it has made this whole drawing, right? Let's do the same thing we did before where we go in and adjust the crop and draw a crop box around our little desky desk. And then we'll adjust the annotations right here. Okay. Place that right underneath your desk. If you do this right, it will look exactly like your other drafting that you did. Almost exactly like your 2D drafting. Okay. I didn't do the details on the top, and if you did, then they'll be there, right? If you wanted to do those as separate boards, you totally could, but I didn't do that. I'm just doing a simplified top view. There's also some other stuff I can teach you about that, but we're going to leave that for now. I am going to change the color of my annotations to blue. It lets me kind of see a little better where my annotations are. And I'm going to use constrained linear dimensions. So I go over here to the DIMS notes category, which is the little ruler and the pencil. Click on that, and I'm going to do constrained linear dimensions. Okay, so in the top view, the dimensions that I need, that should be, yeah. And then this guy, those are my 2 dimensions that I need. Okay, I'm going to hit X to get out of that, and then select the other one, and I'm going to make these also blue, right? So you can do this with line weight, or you can just use color, and once I moved into computer drafting, I used color more than line weight to differentiate between types of lines. There's also a way to adjust anything which is a dimension, and use a dimension class, and that will automatically create dimensions that are a color, and we can talk about doing that on our next project. But for this one, I'm just going to change them to blue, desktop, exit viewport annotations, and now the only thing that I don't love is that I'm seeing all of the framing through underneath, which is not so cute. So I'm going to come over here to the object info, click on the shape tab while the viewport is highlighted. Let me move some other stuff out the way. And then when we scroll down, one of the options that I have is the view, top plan, and then the background render, which is the only render I've got going. I'm going to make that, instead of wireframe, which is see-through, transparent, I'm going to make that a hidden line drawing. Okay, so if I use a hidden line drawing, it's going to hide everything that's underneath the top surface. If I use a dashed hidden line, it would create the dashed lines like if you wanted them to be able to see that there was stuff behind something, or if you had like an archway, right? So I update that, and now my desktop is all cleaned up, and it just looks like the rectangle that's the top of the desk. So now I have a couple of options, right? I can either go back into my main drawing, which is what I'm going to do first. So I'm going to go back into my design layers over here, and I'm going to go onto the scenery layer, and now I'm going to switch from top plan view into front view to do the front view of the desk. There she is, right? So that's my front view of my desk. And then I'm going to create a viewport of that. Same process, also going to be in 1/2 inch scale. And I can change right here, rendering from wireframe to hidden line, so it'll just do it as it creates it for the first time. The drawing title is going to be Desk Front. And there it is. Okay, so let me zoom out. It is there, but there's also some other weird stuff going on. So let's crop it down to the right size. Crop. Okay, you'll notice I'm missing that horizontal board that's on the original. So if you wanted to do that in your 3D model, that would be highly recommended. And then your model would be better than mine. You know, if you're going for that 6 or whatever, you should probably put that board in. Otherwise, you know, you'll be fine. 5s are 5s. And then let me exit viewport crop. So now I'm going to go back into this viewport in the annotations version. I'm going to bring its baseline right over here, exit viewport annotations. If you zoom in on it now, you'll see it has these red scritchy scratchy lines on top of orange for the border. What that means is it's looking for an update. It means that something has changed since it gave you this original version, and if you click update, it'll do a new version that's cleaner. So I'm going to click update, and at that point what happens is it cleans it all up so that now you're seeing that hidden line view instead of the other way around. I'm going to go back into annotations. I'm going to make my drawing label blue because I love blue. You can make it a different color as long as it's legible, which is why I like blue. It's pretty legible. It's still pretty high contrast. If I pick up my constrained linear dimensions and I change the color first, theoretically it will draw in that color. Let's see what happens. So I can say there's my height, my total height, right? I can say here's my total width, right? You want to go through and label any dimension that is going to help your carpenters know how big, and I did that wrong. Let me go back. How big something is and how tall something is, right? So I need to know that that dimension is 2 foot 1.5 inches, and then I'll need to know that this dimension here is 3.5 inches, etc. Okay, and that this leg is 3.5 inches wide, and you can do that on both legs, or you can input. You can say 3.5 inches typical if it's both legs are the same, right? And that's over here in the side, right? You can add a trailer like TYP, and then it'll say 3.5 inches typical, which is like every leg is 3.5 inches, right? All 4 of them would be then. Does that make sense? Okay, exit viewport annotation. So that's some of the annotations I would do. Feel free to do any others that bother you or jump out at you, right? That you don't want your carpenter to screw up when they build it. Let me do a thing over here where I snap this in so that it's aligned, right? And if I make that alignment deal, then I can get it so it actually aligns with the drawing above it, which is good drafting form, right? So then it's pretty clean, and I can move it down with Control M, which doesn't work for me, but it'll work for you. And over here, I'll go to Move, and I'll just move it. And when I'm moving things on this page, I'm actually moving in real scale. So if I do 0 and I do like minus 1.5 inches, it'll move it an actual 1.5 inches down. So that's those 2 views. I want to show you another way to get your side view. So I'm going to Control D, duplicate. Okay, I'm going to go in here and delete the measurement annotations because they're just going to confuse things in a minute. So we're just going to select all of that stuff and delete it. Great. We can change the name of the drawing right over here, as well as double clicking into that annotation and changing it in the drawing label. So I can say that this is desk side right there. Okay. The next thing I can do, I can scroll down and I can change the view from front to right. Now what's going to happen is probably it's going to disappear, and that's because it moved outside of your crop, outside of your original crop box. So if you go back into crop, there it is, it's just right next door, so I can just slide over and scoop that baby up, exit viewport crop. Okay, so here we go, annotations, and then I want dimensions on this too, which you know what you're doing, right, by now, because you'll do your dimensions basically the way you would do it in Mr. A's class. Let me zoom in. Let me just make some dimensions real quick, right? We're seeing kind of where the pieces of wood are overlapping, which is useful. I'm going to grab my constrained linear dimensions in blue, and I'm going to do, my top, right? If I move that a little further off, right? So if I hit X, I can grab my dimension line, right? If I grab my actual measurement, it'll move that, which is one option, but let's undo that. I can grab on my actual dimension line and it'll move that dimension up so that I can do this inside dimension, and then this inside dimension I'll do on the bottom. Mostly it's about clarity, right? You don't want one dimension to be overlapping another. As much as possible, you want it to be clean so it's clear which things are pointing where. If you don't like the hash marks version, you can switch to a different dimension standard. It's not changing. Let's see. Escape. Dimension standards, right? Switch to a different dimension standard like ASME, which might be nicer because it creates an arrow and centers your dimension. So that's closer to a standard theater dimension. This is closer to a standard architectural dimension, which is why it's under the arch. Setting, name, right? So maybe we should switch our dimensions to ASME, and I might go back and do that on the rest of them as well. If I pull this dimension up, it's still connected. If I pull it over here, you get a leader line out to the side that shows where it goes. So you'll finish that, although I haven't. You will. You'll align this bottom edge so that it snaps right there. Move. When you do Command M, it will move. And move it like 5 or 6 inches over. Too far. You can move that back. But that gives you the idea of how you're going to lay out your page. Cool? Makes sense? Everything's awesome? You'll do all of that, and then you'll go back and do the same steps you've been doing to change your title block to represent this drawing. And then you can export it and submit it through Schoology. Save. And F10. I forgot the best part. So I came back, even though I stopped. I came back. Vectorworks is loading. Not right now, baby. Too much going on. I'm going to open my recent file that I just did. Because the best part about when you draft in 3D is that you can add a 3D sketch to your drafting page so that everyone knows for sure 100% what it's supposed to look like. So to do that, I just go back to that scenery plate, right? The design layer, make that active, right? Shift C, just like I have been all along. And I give myself a little perspective view, right? Something like that. Then I create a viewport of this. And it will do all of the same stuff, okay? In this viewport, instead of wireframe, I'm going to use hidden line. If I wanted to, I could add another layer of rendering, right? If you have made it into colors because you're Matthew, or added textures or stuff like that, that's totally an option at this point. And I'm going to just call this drawing 3D sketch. So this will help your shop to confirm what it's supposed to look like, which is pretty great because then they have no excuses. Same exact story. Let's click update. See, it looks like the thing. And now I can go in here and crop it down so that it's just the picture of the desk and not all the other weird gack, using my crop box just like always. And I can put it over here. And I'll make it a little bigger, maybe, because it's teeny tiny, itty bitty, so small. Maybe I'll make it 1-inch scale. No, that's too much. That's too much. Let's just make it 1/2-inch scale, I just made it worse, you guys. This is the day I'm having. I made it 1/2-inch scale, just like everything else. Update. And let's update that annotation, just clean up the placement of that drawing label for us. Great. There you go. So that is what your final plate should look like. Because if you're going to go to the trouble of drafting it in 3D, you should put the 3D drawing on your Vectorworks.